Okay. Today, we're going to be preparing our shallow poach flounder. It's a Gulf flounder. Sorry for the noise, but part of this classically is making what's called a cartouche. As you can see, I have some parchment paper, and it doesn't quite fit over our pan comfortably. So what I'm going to do, we're going to take it, fold it along one side. All right, make a crease like that. I'm gonna fold it again. All right. And then we're gonna make a series of small folds. This. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna measure our pan. All right, so you're gonna wanna put the tip roughly in the center of the pan, like that. I'm gonna mark the edge with my other hand. I'll come to my cutting board. To your board. Cut the edges, cut the tip, leave a little vent hole in the middle. We'll unfold it, and look at that. Sits right down on the top. Now, I want to take some room temperature butter. You can melt some butter and use a pastry brush if you'd like. I keep cold and room temp butter here at my house, just because why not, right? So we're gonna take some butter, push it around. Go all the way to the edge. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to keep it. This is that original non-stick spray right here, I guess. Yeah, and it's also just delicious. This meal is probably gonna have a fair amount of butter in it, so keep up, you know? Anyway, all right, so that's our buttered cartouche right there. It's also a good technique. I don't really care for putting a lot of plastic wrap on hot sauces that are on the stove. Parchment paper won't burn inside of a pot, so it's really good to use one of these. You don't have to butter it if you're gonna use it to keep from forming a skin on sauces. There's my dog. Hi, Daily. So what you can do is if you wanna keep a skin from forming on top of like a cream sauce or something like that, you can make a cartouche with some parchment paper, put it down on top of your sauce, and set it aside until you're ready to use it, and it won't form the skin. So, all right, let's go prepare the fish. All right, today we're gonna be doing one of my favorite cooking methods. It's a very classical technique. It's a shallow poach. We're actually gonna be doing some shallow poach flounder here. This is Gulf flounder, just also known as a sandy flounder, It's a delicious fish. Got this just earlier today at the seafood market. And I think this is just one side. I think it's gonna be enough. If you're doing a bigger party, that's fine. Usually one piece per person. I've also got some vegetables here. Just some julienne cut, zucchini, squash, and red pepper. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll this and we're gonna use some toothpicks to keep it together. And then we'll go over to the stove and we'll do the shallow poach method. So what you're gonna do is, this is your flesh side, this is your skin side. You wanna make sure your skin side facing down, right? I've just got this on a plate here. We're gonna season the inside with a little bit of coarse kosher salt, right? Not a whole lot. This is a very delicate flavored fish. It's one of my favorites. I love flounder. There's so many different things you can do with it. But since we're talking about basic cooking techniques here, I thought this would be one that probably not a lot of people really hit on anymore. You probably do it more often than you think. Some people consider it to just be steaming. It's a little bit more to it than that. So we've got the inside of this season. We're just gonna take a couple of our squash pieces, a couple of zucchini pieces, and some of our red bell pepper. You don't want a whole lot. It doesn't take much. It's just for a little color and a little flavor, a nice little spring touch since it is springtime here in Alabama. All these vegetables came from the local market earlier today, even though we're in the middle of our coronavirus lockdown sort of situation. You can still find a market open here or there. And all we're gonna do is sit those in the middle, make a little bundle, and try and keep it nice and tight. And we're gonna roll, starting from the tail end, we're gonna roll the fish up, okay? And we have this nice bundle. We're gonna take a toothpick, we're gonna stick it through, take one more toothpick, stick it through, okay? Pretty easy. Same thing with this guy. And then in a minute, we'll head over to the stove. Go ahead and preheat your oven, 350 degrees. Get your cartouche ready, which we just covered. And make sure it's buttered and ready to go. The pan you want to use for this is classically called a sautoir. It's a shallow frying pan. It's a straight side frying pan. The one that I have is not a very nice one necessarily. It's, I think, maybe $15 at Walmart or something. It's not a pan that most people use very often. It is good for pan frying and of course shallow poaching. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna roll that up real tight. Take our toothpicks. Go through the side, make sure you go all the way through, but you leave yourself some room sticking out so you don't forget to pull those out. We're gonna take a little bit more salt and pepper, just a little bit on the outside. A lot of people prefer white pepper. I don't have white pepper, I'm using black pepper. We're in my house. I'm eating this for dinner. It is what it is. All right, let's head to the stove and I'll show you how to prepare. Okay, now to the stove so we can get our shallow poach started. So I've got a sautoir here, right? Not 100% straight sided. It's the best I got. I don't have one on hand. Turn this heat up just a little bit. This is a very gentle cooking method. So like I said, I've preheated my oven, 350 degrees. I've got about a tablespoon of butter here. Put it in the pan. You don't want any color on this. You don't want a whole lot of sizzling and popping going on. What we're gonna do is melt that butter in the bottom of the pan. All right. And then I've got some minced shallots here. This is about a half a large shallot. The shallots we get here are pretty exceptionally big. So you always end up sometimes with more than you need. So what we're gonna do, take that shallot, put it in the bottom of our pan, and what this is gonna do, it's gonna add some flavor, obviously, and it's also gonna act to sort of elevate the fish and keep it directly off the bottom of the pan. And what's gonna happen is we'll set the fish on top of it. Like I said, we're not really looking to cook that butter. We're just gonna take this guy, we're gonna put him right in there like that, space him out. And so here I have a little bit of stock, right? I don't have fish stock. I couldn't get fish bones today. Fish stock's pretty easy to make. There's just some chicken stock, which is fine. Maybe a little heavy flavor for this. We're just gonna put a little bit in the bottom. This is about a cup, and I might not even use all of it because we're gonna add some white wine also. All right, let's put a little bit of white wine. And you don't want a whole lot of wine in it because what this is gonna do is create what's called a cuisson. And your cuisson is the base for your sauce. So when you do a shallow poach, you typically use the liquid that the fish was poached in, or whatever meat you're poaching. You'll use that to make your final sauce for the dish. And so what we're gonna do now that we have our liquid in there, we're gonna turn the heat up. And now you do wanna get the heat in there. And we're going to let this come up to a simmer. And then we'll place our cartouche on top of it. And what the cartouche will do, again, this is the cartouche, right? It's buttered parchment paper, cut in the shape of the pan to the size of the pan. And what that's gonna do is allow some steam to escape, which will help with the reduction of the cuisson, or the sauce. You're also going to keep it from coloring on top. That's what the butter is for. The butter will stick to that skin of the fish. These are some pretty thick fillets of flounder. Sometimes you can get them thinner. If you're cutting them yourself or you're doing the selection yourself, you can kind of, once you cut a lot of fish, you can sort of judge the size of the fish. But we're just gonna bring it up to a simmer, right? And really all we're doing by bringing it up to a simmer is saving time in the oven. So you notice with the rice pilaf method, we bring the liquid to a simmer before we put it in the oven. That cuts down your oven time, it speeds up your cooking time, and it keeps anything from overcooking really. So we're gonna bring this to a simmer, which it's starting to do. All right. You wanna wait until it's going all the way around. Then we're gonna take our buttered cartouche. We're gonna place it over the top. And this pan does have a vented hood or a lid. So we're gonna take that, sit it on top. We're gonna put this in a 350-degree oven. We're gonna start with about 10 to 12 minutes and we'll check it after that. You wanna make sure the fish is just cooked all the way through. And then we'll plate it up and I'll show you how to make the sauce. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, our sauce our cuisson has started to reduce down, and it's getting to a point that they would call à sec. Sec means dry, and as you can see, it's reduced quite a bit. We have a nice base going on. So I'm going to turn the heat down. Right? I don't want it to keep simmering. We're going to turn it down pretty much on low. And I had a couple extra sprigs of thyme. And so I'm going to use those because I love thyme. It tastes good on the fish. Throw those in. We're going to go ahead and squeeze our lemon in there. right. Use a little bit of that later. All right. And then one at a time, that cold butter we got, we're gonna put it in there. We're going to emulsify the sauce. All right, a little bit at a time. Make that nice basic butter sauce for serving. Maybe turn it up a little bit. You just don't want to break the sauce, which is where the emulsification breaks. It's not impossible to bring back, but it'll never taste quite as good as the original sauce before it broke. So you really just never want to stop stirring. Right. You can already see it's starting to thicken up a little bit. What's happening is the fat molecules from the butter are dispersing themselves evenly and distributing throughout the watery substance right here. We're gonna go put the rest of our butter in. Go ahead, put that down. And it's creating what's called an emulsion, right? So it's a thickening process. This really is just the most basic version of that. And we're just emulsifying the butter into our wine and stock production. Right, a little bit of thyme flavor. And when this is done, we'll taste it for seasoning. It should be pretty well seasoned. It probably caught some of the salt off the fish. As you can see, it doesn't take long, but it's a nice thick sauce. And when it gets to this point, go ahead and turn your heat off. Like I said, you don't want it to break. So, same method you would use for hollandaise sauce, things like that. So, that's an emulsified egg sauce. But, yeah, as you can see, I'll take a little taste here. Delicious. Little pinch of salt. You can taste that light flavor from the fish. You can taste the wine. It has that brightness from the wine and the lemon juice. And then the butter added some nice rich mouthfeel along with the chicken stock. And so what we're gonna do, because I'm getting ready to plate this, I'm gonna take it and put it straight into this little Pyrex dish I have here. In a restaurant, you'd be making this to order, and you can actually just pour it from the pan through the strainer straight over the plate or into another bowl that you can then give to whoever is doing the plating, usually the chef at the pass, something like that. But when it comes to emulsified sauces like this and working in a restaurant environment, one thing that I've always found to be really helpful, give that a little tap, make sure and get as much sauce out of it as we can. Yield is always important, right? We work with expensive ingredients. We want to make sure and get our money's worth. You can go back with a rubber spatula, scrape that pan, but that'll be enough for what we're using it for right there. And so there's your sauce, right? Nice and velvety and smooth. Now, you don't want to let this hang out cold too long, because even being too cold, it will break. So what we're going to do is go back over to the cutting board area, and we'll put our whole plate together. All right, so we have all of our ingredients here. We have our green beans, our rice pilaf, we have our shallow poached flounder, turned out great, and our cuisson butter sauce right here, a little butter emulsion for the fish. And just to give it some color on top, I've chiffonaded some flat leaf Italian parsley. You can go about this several ways. You can just spoon the rice out, go in a ring mold if you want. You just take it, pack it down in there, whatever. I'm just getting ready to eat this for dinner. Thought I'd make a little video just to bring you guys along. So I'm just gonna put myself a little spoonful of rice on there, right? If you're in a restaurant, obviously you wanna wear gloves. Okay, get that out of the way. Take some of our green beans here, kind of push it to the side there. We'll take a piece of our fish, toothpicks removed, right? Don't forget the toothpicks. And then we'll take our sauce, right? See a nice velvety consistency. And we'll spoon that right over the top of the fish. You can see that it clings to the fish. If you ever want to check the consistency of your sauce for nappe, right? Just dip the back of your spoon in the sauce. Give it a little run like that. If it doesn't come back together, you're living the life. We'll take a little bit of our parsley. Just kind of shake some on top. All right. And that's your shallow poached fish, spring vegetables, saffron rice pilaf, and blanched and sauteed farmer's market green beans. Enjoy.